a great sign for the future. I mean, for his future with the team, Ori Salos, like something's gonna give there. That Laker game on Friday, he looked relatively normal in the first half. Second half was kind of a mess. So, what I wrote for CBS Sports Today, I think when you look at just the act of employing a star, there's kind of a spectrum or a continuum or something where players, when you don't have a Tim Duncan or a Stephen Curry who's totally undramatic and lets you do what you're going to do as an organization, when you have those guys, great, you're a dynasty and it's awesome. Most of the time, when you have a star, it gets a little difficult where they might not like the plays the coach is running. They might not like some of their teammates. They might say annoying things in the media. They might dictate some things behind the scenes that you as an organization might not be crazy about. Basically, the better you are, the more you can get away with, the more you should be able to get away with. If you're LeBron James, nobody's going to get mad if you complain about your roster in January because you're LeBron. And when you had him, at least at his peak, he was like an automatic ticket to the finals. So, like, yeah, you put up with that stuff for LeBron. If Giannis wants a new coach, you get Giannis a new coach because Giannis is more valuable than any coach. So he wins that power struggle. Basically, you kind of have to justify the headaches you create with your production on the floor. You go back to Ja's peak when he wins Most Improved Player in 2022. He was causing pretty minimal headaches, missing some games, fine. The occasional regrettable quote, like he was not, in fact, fine in the West, as we would later find out. But for the most part, the production really outpaced the headaches. What has since happened over the last couple of years is that the headaches have gone up and the production has gone down. And now I think if you're the Grizzlies, you kind of have to ask yourself, does Ja Morant justify the headaches he gives our organization with the way he produces on the floor? I'll make my argument after the fact. Yossi, I just want to check in with where you are on this. Do you think that Ja Morant is worth it for the Grizzlies anymore?
I'm leaning towards no. So before I get into it, I just started going. For those tuning in on YouTube, I accidentally forgot to start that going live. So for all of those, just want to say what we're doing again. We're going to talk about Ja Morant, his future with the Grizzlies today. And we all know what happened on Friday. He had the big public disagreement with the coaching staff. And now I think there's a lot of discussion going on right now about the type of player Ja has been in the past few years. And as Sam is asking, if it's really worth continuing this union, just seeing how he's been playing. So you wrote a really good piece today, and the thing is, like, it's pretty obvious when you just look at the stats, what's been going on without even really saying too much, where with Ja, his ad rim frequency has gone down. He's not getting to the paint as much as he used to,
I've
or
got those
scoring.
numbers if you want them, but they're pretty concerning.
Yeah, no, it's really, yeah. I saw Kevin O'Connor. He tweeted a nice graph. It went from like 40 something percent to like high 20s, like between, like, I think it got to low 30s last year. So like 2024, and that was a very short season for him. I think he only played only 7 games. That was the last time he was getting to the rim at the rate that we all know and remember. And the shooting, it's basically like, it's non-existent anymore. Like, any hope there was of him developing a jumper, it's basically gone. That one season he had in 2022, where I think he shot like 34%, that's basically the exception. That's the outlier. He hasn't gone anything close to that, and now he's shooting like a dismal 19% from three. And that's what he's trying to do. And part of me wants to know, is that just because he's having if that's kind of like a bit of a rebellion against the coaching staff instead of doing the things he should be doing. But while the shot has been extra bad so far this season, this seems to be kind of more of the trend of how he's been playing last year. So knowing that where his game is trending and his potential short peak, it's always been something that we speculated, considering how If the prime that we know of him from 22, 23, if that was going to be a short-lived thing, maybe, yeah, it might already be done. When we did our player draft to see players that we would want to draft to start a franchise with, I took Ja with like one of my last few picks because of like the maybe 50% chance that he gets back to that form. I think it's definitely lower than that now. So I feel like if we gave the Grizzlies truth serum about where they really at with him, I would guess that they're probably ready to move on. But I think that's going to be a lot harder than anticipated because
So
you look okay.
yeah, you
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I was just going to say, well, you saw they set the price high for Desmond Bain. They got an absolute haul from him. You would think that if that's what they got for Bain, then they should be able to get even more for Ja, just proportionally speaking. I don't really see any type of offer like that. So this could take some time, especially considering that Ja still has a lot of time left on his deal.
I think right now he is like a neutral to maybe slightly negative asset. I think he would get a little bit more than that. I think he would return probably positive value in a trade just because there are 29 suitors and the best out of 29 is usually going to be above what we think the baseline is. But any notion that he's netting anything like what Desmond Bain did, that's just fiction. The reason Desmond Bain got what he got was because he filled a very narrow set of circumstances for the Magic that no other available player did. They wanted somebody who was an elite shooter, a passable defender, who could function with or without the ball because they wanted the ball in Paolo's hands and in Franz Wagner's hands. And they wanted somebody like reasonably young. So when you combine all of those things, Desmond Bain was kind of the only guy out there who could do what they needed. I mean, unless they'd wanted to wait for Devin Booker, who is playing pretty well to start the season, doesn't look like Phoenix is all that eager to trade him. The difference, we talk about this all the time, is that small, high usage guards, there's just way more supply than there is demand. Most teams already have the version of that guy that they want. And when they don't, they're usually seeking out somebody who like is a better shooter, better defender, better locker room presence, better in any number of ways that Ja is currently questionable. Like De'Aaron Fox was the last like version of this player to get traded, but De'Aaron Fox, his last playoff trip was great. He's like a not a good shooter, but much better than Ja Morant has been lately. You look at other guys in that archetype when Atlanta tried to trade Trae Young, they couldn't do it, or at least they couldn't do it at anything remotely resembling what you'd consider fair value for an all-star point guard. And I think more teams that have explored trading guards like that have found similar answers. Look at what's going on in Milwaukee right now. They trade all of their draft flexibility to get Damian Lillard. That doesn't go well for 2 years. They waive Dame, they sign Miles Turner, and they build their backcourt this year around Cole Anthony and Ryan Rollins. Kevin Porter Jr. has missed some games, but he'll be back. They're playing great, or at least they're playing about as well as they could have hoped with these really cheap guards. And I think what that's showing is that unless you're like at a certain level, like Jalen Brunson is worth that kind of investment. But when you go down a level and you start asking, who are the guys that we want to pay two, three, four first round picks for? It really isn't the Ja Morant type because you can frankly get 80% of the production at like 20% of the price. If you look at how well the mid level guys and the minimum guys tend to do at that position, I've got these numbers for Ja in front of me. Let's just go through them really quick. So, percentage of shots within 3 feet of the rim. We'll call this like, your layup, your dunk rate. Last 5 seasons 33%, 28.9, 28.8, 23.3, 16. Cut more in half over the last few years. Free throw rate over the last 4 years 40.9, 37.6, 35.9, 33. Going down every single year. One easy one, points per game 27.4, 26.2, 25.1, 23.2, 20.8. It's going down every single year. It's a linear trajectory in the wrong direction. The contract is a standard 25% max for a rookie from that year. It's 39.4 million this year, 42.2 next year, 44.9 year after that. So you've got 3 full years left, basically, around 25, 26% of the salary cap. You know, the other part of this too is I'm a little confused as to what he's complaining about under Isalo. Last year, the Grizzlies obviously run this very different sort of offense. If you look at like the tracking data on how often Ja's getting the ball, on what he's doing when he has it looks a lot more like not peak Ja Morant, but what Ja should want. He was up from around 68 touches a game last year to around 76 this year. He's holding the ball for around an average half second every time he touches it. He's dribbling about, a half dribble more per possession. He's basically getting to be the kind of like high usage pick and roll point guard that he wants to be. And that still isn't making him happy. Like, I'm kind of confused. It's like what the best version of him even looks like anymore. At his peak, what we kind of assumed, like you go back to 2022, he's getting to the rim like a madman. We're sort of looking at him now that or at that point, that he was shooting like a league average rate from three. Well, the idea then was that he could be like Russell Westbrook as a driver, but a slightly better shooter, and that could get him to like first team All NBA, maybe MVP consideration. The opposite has kind of happened, where he's gotten worse as a driver, but he's also been like a Russell Westbrook level shooter. The numbers are startling if you look at them side by side. Ja Morant for his career, 31.3% from three, 6.4 attempts per 100. Russell Westbrook, 30.6%, 5.4 attempts per 100. Those are the same numbers, essentially. So we have a Russell Westbrook level shooter who is not an elite driver anymore, has never been the rebounder that Russ was, has never been the on ball defender that Russ was, is not that level of playmaker. And oh, yeah, he's a pain to deal with in the locker room. I'm a little confused as to why like anybody would treat him, at least in his current iteration, as some high value asset. He's somebody that I understand certain teams might want to take the risk on, but I'm just looking at him in a vacuum and saying, like, I don't think I'd want him on my team at the number that he would command with the possessions that he would command. I just don't really think it's worthwhile. So we do have some trades to pitch here. I have a bunch of specific fake trades that I'm going to throw at Yossi. I'll just throw it out there before we do that. What are the kinds of teams that you're thinking of here? Because as I was going through the teams, what I realized was any team with really significant assets probably out. If you're Houston or Oklahoma or Utah or Brooklyn, why is this the guy that you're going in for when you can keep your chips and get somebody who doesn't have all of these other concerns? Houston is one that I've seen thrown around a lot on Twitter. I don't understand why you would trade for another bad shooter if you were the Rockets. And then if you're like a true championship contender, I think it would be tough as well because most of those teams already have primary ball handlers who are better than Ja Morant. You're not going to get Ja Morant thinking he'll be like an off ball guy for you because of the shooting and the defense. You need him to be the focal point of your offense or one of the focal points of your offense to justify giving up anything, even just taking on the salary. So those are teams that I kind of just can't see doing this. What kinds of teams are you looking at here?
So we'll start eliminating teams first. And I do want to just get to the point you were just making about the contract aspect, where he does have 2 years left on his contract, no player option. And most of the time when we have a star guard get a max contract on his rookie scale contract extension, these guys, a lot of the time, they tend to get another one after. Whether you want to talk about Russ, Steph Curry, Chris Paul, like some of the like great point guards, even John Wall. Then we go down to like recently you got De'Aaron Fox successfully got a second max contract. Jamal Murray, 0-time All-Star, 0-time All-NBA, got a second max contract. And now we're starting to see not these guys are not comparable at all as far as like the types of guards they are, but I do think there's a lot of parallels with I think there could be some parallels with what's going on with Trae Young right now, where with Trae, after his huge, now we're 5 years removed from him taking the Hawks to the conference finals, there's been a lot of people cooling down on the type of player Trey is, how good he could be, if he can really be a number one guy. I think we now know the answer to that is probably not for a championship contender. But at the same time, I think that's mostly a product of the type of contract he has, that he is on this big max contract. And now we're getting to the end of this contract. He's got a player option, and his extension situation has been a not a huge storyline, but it's something that everyone's monitoring. And as a cap guy, just I'm really curious what that falls down to, what kind of contract he ends up getting, because Jalen Brunson taking his max contract, that's sub max, when he would have gotten a 30% max had he made it to free agency, that kind of changes a lot of things. Whether it's not going to like prevent certain guys from getting a max or not. De'Aaron Fox was still got a max. Like the Spurs didn't hold him to that type of line. But for a guy like Trae Young, I anticipate probably going to get something below the max. So with Ja, with the way he's playing, and that's even and I'll just get to it. Like we'll start eliminating teams because he's a really tough fit. And when you look at a lot of these teams that you mentioned already, I agree with you. I don't really think that a lot of these teams are going to be well equipped to have him. You need to surround them with shooting because you cannot trust that the shot's going to come back. And that's before even getting to the off court stuff. If like the gun stuff aside, now it's clearly like more internal stuff with the team, unfortunately. So yeah, let's just get to it. Like, let's see. So basically, yeah, the other thing is another team's going to have to anticipate what that next contract's going to be. And it'll probably still be, if he's going to get back to, like, I think he's going to be a little better than this. But let's say he's not, like, all NBA's out of the question going forward. And he's like an all-star from time to time, which is kind of what Trey is. Like every other year, he seems to be an all-star. Then you're probably looking, and then I think I would just say let's pay close attention to what happens with Trey, because I think that could be a really good marker for where Ja's next contract is. So I think we're going to need to see teams, they're going to want to see how that plays out first. So the first team you mentioned is Houston. Is that the first one you mentioned?
Well, that's one that I don't like. I have 8 fake trades written. I did not make one for Houston, but if you have some
No,
thoughts
we're ruling teams out.
Oh, yeah. Houston, I don't think makes sense.
Yeah. So Houston, they need a guy who can shoot. Period. At guard. I don't think, like, are they still number one on offense this year? I know they were like number one.
No, Houston.
Okay.
This is just a really fascinating bit of like nerddom. Last I checked, the Rockets were number 1 in offense, despite being number 10 in effective field goal percentage. So just efficiency, basically. And like very, very low in pace as well. Like a lot of the underlying stats you'd look at and say, this is what creates good offense. None of them were pointing to the number 1 offense. But the Rockets are number 1 in the NBA in offensive rebounding at a historic level. And they're number 1 in free throw rate, too. And that is carrying them to the number 1 ranked offense, despite the fact that they're like not shooting well and they're not doing enough in transition and they're not getting these easier sources of offense that you'd expect. They just get every rebound and they keep getting to the line.
Yeah, and we, anyways, our third apron trade that we're going to be pushing every so often. We've been pushing since June for the Rockets, and especially now with the Van Vliet injuries, for them to hopefully get Derek White. That'll be like, I think we still agree that would be a much better fit.
I have another Houston idea that I'm going to throw at you a little bit later. I may have worked them into something as a third team.
So then I'll rule out another one, which now that I bring up Derek White, I think you might disagree with this one, but I feel pretty safe about ruling out the Celtics.
Yeah.
I think that they are probably going to try to go for another all-star in the future. They do have that big trade exception, which can't fit Ja Morant, but I think they're going to be trying to get somebody who makes significantly less than Tatum and Brown do. And I think that with the way they're going to want to bring in a guard who can shoot, If they do bring in another guard, that is, I think their backcourt. If anything, they need to get another big wing or a big man. But I think they're pretty set at guard, assuming they do keep Derek White. They've got Pritchard. They have a lot of other nice young guards that they drafted recently. I don't see them going for a guard, and if they do go for a guard, I highly doubt it would be a non-shooter like Ja Morant.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I looked at it just like it is an interesting thought. The idea of putting Ja on a team that takes a billion threes, just like that, they'll space the floor and that'll make it easier for him to get to the rim again. And getting to the rim was the one thing Boston didn't really do over the last couple of years, even when they were winning championships, winning 60 games. Then you just look at the salary structure and it's like Ja or Jason Tatum super max, Jalen Brown super max, Derek White ton of money, and you throw in a Ja max on top of that. It's like that's not tenable when you don't have a playable center on your roster. I mean, I guess you could say maybe they would trade Derek White for a bunch of stuff and then bring Ja in afterward and just be like, those are our three guys. I can't see this Boston front office, this coaching staff valuing John. No, first of all, Austin Reeves is playing better than John Morant right now. There's not going to do something with LeBron's salary. Like, no, does not make sense to bring in a non-shooting ball dominant guy next to Luca. We can knock them off. How many teams do you want to eliminate? Like the Warriors, no, they want to
Yeah.
start. Not going to beat them.
I've got a so yeah. Oh no. So I want to eliminate a couple that I think logically people can get to the conclusion that make sense, but then I want to get to why I disagree.
All right.
So and I'll kind of warm up to like I guess better fits in my eyes. The next one I would say is a team that normally would fit our criteria for like a desperate type of team that would make the type of move, and that's the Chicago Bulls. Josh Giddey has so far been able to build upon what he did last year in the second half of the season. He's still shooting really well. Like it's 43%. It's going to come down a little bit. I'm sure it will, but he's locked into that $25 million a year rate. Like, okay, yeah, you could, even if the Bulls were bold enough to try to pair him with Ja, you're just looking way too small if you're going to keep Kobe White as well. You already got a lot of like, it's already a pretty small backcourt there. Actually, no, I mean it's not that small, but like you're starting to get like smaller. Plus, you are gonna really the offense the offense could take a hit with the shooting. Like that's a thing that's been helping the Bulls. Like they've got like a nice 5-out spacing minus a Coro thing going on. So I like if they hadn't done the Giddey trade, absolutely. But I think at this point, if it's between Giddey and Ja, I think the Bulls, I think at this point, just roll with Giddey making what it's probably gonna be half of what Ja's next contract is going to be going forward.
Yeah, Giddey has been better than Ja so far this year anyway. I don't know if I expect that to sustain, but at least thus far, I don't think there's any real reason for them to bring in Ja. Like what happened to Chicago last year, they trade Zach LaVine and suddenly Kobe White and Josh Giddey explode. That's not an accident. Zach LaVine is a better fit with those guys than Ja is because Zach LaVine shoots. So I have Chicago in here as a third team and something else. You're going to get a real kick out of the way I use Chicago. I can't imagine, or I couldn't have imagined 2 weeks ago making the version of the Chicago trade that I made, but I did have some fun with them as a third team. I do not think they make any sense as a Ja team.
Do you have another one, or should I do my last one?
Do all of your eliminations, then I'll start throwing out my fake trades.
Okay, the last one that I wanted to eliminate. Just trying to make sure I'm not missing anybody. Okay, so there's two. And these ones, I think some people will be surprised. I'm gonna go. I think a lot of people think that this team should trade for him, and I think just based on their success this year, I'm starting to think that they're gonna want to reconsider their long term. They might start reconsidering what the long term solution at point guard is, and that's Portland.
That is the team I have a trade for.
Where I think on paper it kind of makes sense because especially the type of player Scoot is projected to be, he's not going to be exactly like Ja Morant, but they there is some overlap with the non-shooting, like the theory of the driving for Scoot. But see, first of all, like I think everybody like on in basketball media, both of us included, so many other people, so far pretty damn wrong about the Blazers trading for Drew Holiday. He's been playing like a damn near all-star. He is like Avdia's probably going to get the credit as your best player, but I think like you almost have to consider if you have to give him an all-star spot. I almost feel like you got to give it to Drew because he's really putting it all together. I think just with the way Drew is playing, like if you're going, I understand the long-term play. If you're going to package him or Jeremy Grant plus Scoot and picks to get Ja, but I think that now like you don't want. I don't know if the Blazers should even. This is more like a referendum on like having Scoot going forward because if Scoot can out and really break out this season, and he did make some pretty steady improvements last year, then okay, that they're gonna commit to him. But I don't know. Now seeing the way Drew is, like maybe they want to consider like a different type of direction at point guard. Like because Drew's getting older, he's not going to be their long-term answer. But in terms of who the next guy might be, I'm just thinking about maybe they want somebody a little more who's got a little more versatility to their game.
Okay, first of all, get and picks out of your vocabulary on this episode because I have a lot of trades here that do not include the words and picks. It's a lot of matching salaries, and like if you get a young guy with some upside, feel good about that. Like I spent a lot of time thinking about Scoot Henderson and Jeremy Grant for Ja Morant. I think there's an argument to be made that it makes sense for all parties involved. If you got Scoot to Memphis, the best player developing team in the NBA, I'd start to feel very, very good about his long term prospects, especially with a shooting big man in Jaren Jackson there. So they could space the floor without worrying as much about his issues. Meanwhile, get Ja to Portland, have him just move in with Dame, move in with Drew. Don't let those guys out of your sight. Just like you show him professionalism, you show him how to take care of your body, you show him how to lead an organization. That could go pretty well. I don't want to take the L on the Drew Holiday trade yet. He has been playing very, very well, and the Blazers are playing very well. I just want to point out our issue with the trade, first and foremost, was that they were taking on this huge contract several years into the future. If they make the play in, or even if they're a top 6 seed this year, I don't think that justifies taking on a potentially very bad contract 2 years from now in terms of developing actual championship equity, which is what we actually tend to value in building a team. So I'm hold up on like declaring the Drew Holiday trade a win for them. It has been very good so far. They've gotten what they've wanted out of it. I don't think it's a trade that's like, unless it maybe gets them a lot of useful playoff experience, and he's obviously a valuable mentor for their younger guys. I don't think that trade like really increased their championship equity. I still frankly wouldn't have done it. But yeah, I thought Portland was an interesting team. It was one of the teams I had on my list. I do understand your basic idea that things are going well enough for them that like why rock the boat. But that being said, we can be honest, we don't look at that team and see a long-term primary ball handler all-star type. And as we learned during the Dame era, it's pretty hard to convince somebody like that to come to Portland. They've never been able to recruit a star from the outside. I don't think, unless you're talking about the older guys during the Jailblazers era, they've never really been able to like get an all-star level guy in his prime to come to Portland. Maybe Jaws, like things have gone badly enough for him that like that could make sense. It's a rare opportunity for a city and organization like that. So I understand your trepidation. It was one that I gave some real thought to.
Right, but so here's the thing where I'll push back is that I just again like back to what I was saying earlier, the team needs to be equipped with enough shooting around Ja, and I don't think that this Blazers core, like their starting closing five, is that team. Just looking at it, like really the only guy who like it's mainly Denny Avdia, Drew Holiday are like positive shooters right now, and then Jeremy Grant who's coming off the bench. He'll be closing. I don't know if he's been closing, but he can help play some small lineups. Shaden Sharp has like it's more of a theoretical shooter right now. Like it's never really came in. Uh, I don't think they could depend on Kamara to be that. Like aside from like him knocking down the occasional jumper, obviously Klingon isn't. So I think I think like I'm more so thinking that like maybe they even consider like a different direction away from Scoop because I think they need the additional shooting that Drew brings right now. Uh, on the court, I think it's been a lot better than I anticipated so far. Yes, it's only been 6 games, but I think they got us. That's where I'm at. Where I maybe and maybe there is a trade where they do get Scoot to a team like Memphis. I'm more thinking ahead. Now, this isn't the Blazers episode, but I'm just more interested in like the way Drew has been playing and like what he's brought to the Blazers. What if that changes like the long term projection with Scoot?
Oh, no, it shouldn't because he's 35 and he's on that long-term contract. Like this is nice. It's cool that Drew
No,
is
no, no.
playing.
I'm saying that like instead of looking at Scoot as the next guy, maybe a different point guard. That's not
Well,
Drew.
what I'm saying is like just play out this year. Like you traded for Drew with the intention of like making the playoffs, making the play in at least, and seeing what happened. Like do that. See how this year goes for Scoot. See how it goes for Shaden Sharp. It has been a shaky shooting start for Shaden Sharp. But see how this year goes and then figure it out from there. But like don't make any
Yeah.
big definitive moves. I thought about this Portland trade for Ja a fair bit. Ultimately, I came down and that I probably wouldn't do it, but I did give it a fair bit of thought. You said you have one more team you want to rule out?
So I don't know if we should. I don't know if I'll rule out this team because I'm guessing you might have a trade for this team. I'm very 50-50 on the Heat. Do you have a fake trade for them that you want to
Yes,
get
I
into?
do have a fake trade for the Heat.
All right.
We
So
have
in
we seem
that
to have slightly
case,
different valuations. You want me to just throw out what I have?
everyone, welcome to this week's segment of Who Says No.
It's gonna be
I am
longer than
done.
usual.
I am done ruling out teams, and we are now going to do our fake trades. And yes, these ones get specific. I'm not going to say and a bunch of picks. When I was that was just hypothetical from when I was eliminating teams. My trades are going to be much more specific. So I'll let you, because I don't have a trade for the Heat, so I'm going to let you do it.
The Miami Heat trade Terry Rozier, Norman Powell, and an unprotected 2030 first round swap, which is important because or Memphis has multiple first round picks in 2030, so you could swap with whichever the one is worst for Ja Morant and John Conchar. The idea here is Miami A is probably the best organization to send a player who's had personal locker room injury issues. They're so militant about fitness, they're so militant about their culture. That is an organization that you'd think he would join and like if he's going to get his act together, it would be there. If you look at the basketball of it, they have those two really good defensive big men in Bam Adebayo and Khalil Ware, who both, by the way, both of whom are shooting threes this year and making threes this year.
Yeah,
But you can
Bam shooting
imagine,
like 6 or 7 threes a game.
yep,
Yeah, he's like
that's
their
a
leading
revelation.
3 point shooter.
That changes the second half of his career pretty drastically. So you have the defensive foundation with those guys, having Davion Mitchell as well. You have somebody you can take the best matchup defensively in the backcourt. You have Tyler Hero still, who can be like, you start those two together, you're going to have some defensive issues, sure. But Tyler Hero shoots very well, can help space the floor for Ja. You have Andrew Wiggins still. Like, that's a pretty good team. And if you can get Ja back somewhere closer to where he was in the past, in that weak East, like now you might be talking. You're not giving up all that much to do that. And if you're Memphis, you're just out of the contract, scot free. Two expiring contracts, one of whom might be in jail at some point in the near future. Like you can just get out of this big contract scot free. I believe you'd have a fair bit of cap space next summer. You get a pretty valuable first round swap because if things go badly, is Pat Riley still going to be running the team in 2030? The answer is probably not. We don't know what the Heat will look like at that point. Like this to me, the most similar trade I can think of, and it's an example I've been throwing around a lot on Twitter and in the story that I wrote. I think it reminds me a lot of the Kristaps Porzingis trade in 2022 when Dallas traded Porzingis for Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans, and we looked around like, what are they doing? Like, that's no good value for somebody with all-star talent. But all Dallas could really do, all they could really find on the market was a chance to split that big contract up into smaller components that they then went out and built with. Dallas has gone sideways for other reasons, but that trade in a vacuum mostly worked out for them. In this case, it's kind of just the Grizzlies saying, we can't get great value. Let's turn it into two smaller contracts. Maybe we keep Norm Powell for another year or two. We obviously are not keeping Terry Rozier. We get this, lottery ticket draft asset, and we just say, we're going to reset our books. We're going to be bad this year. We're going to be in the lottery, not only with our own pick, but with that Wizards Suns pick coming from the Desmond Bain trade. Cedric Howard's been very good. We could kind of turn this around pretty quickly. It doesn't have to be an extended tank. If I were the Grizzlies and this is on the table, I'm doing it.
So let me ask you before we move on: Is would you say this is the worst return you came up with out of all the different teams for the Grizzlies?
Among the worst, this is like around the value proposition that I had for most of them, where it's like you get off the contract and maybe you get one kind of interesting thing. I thought about a version of this with Tyler Hero, if you want to talk about that a little bit, especially because like Miami could have extended Hero the same as Memphis could have extended Ja this offseason. Neither of them did it. They're from the same draft class. Like, okay, we're trading one kind of star guard for another. If you want to talk about that, we can. I kind of don't think.
The reason I ask is because like this is basically what I was going to conclude this whole episode with, where
Yeah.
like this is the type of offer that makes me believe that Ja will not get traded this year. Like I at this point I would be stunned if these are like the level of offers he's getting. I think I would just wait it out a little longer if I'm Memphis. Like unless like now look, we don't know exactly like everything going on because you can imagine that whatever we know, chances are it's like even a little bit worse in real life. We just there's other stuff that probably doesn't get out. Like for the Grizzlies to trade him now and like really like give up on getting any value, like that would be pretty damning about like what they know or like the type of the player they think he's going to be going forward. Like that means they really just completely give up. I And when we talk about like where the Grizzlies are, like they're not in a position. It's not like the Heat where last year Jimmy Butler was making everything so uncomfortable for them when they were trying to compete for a title. I mean, just compete for a playoff spot, and he made every day was awful. Ja's not doing that. It's not even close to that type of situation. But the Heat always were trying to win, and they didn't really. They're always like down draft picks every other year. They didn't have their own draft pick last year. It was protected if they for missing the playoffs, but they wanted to make the playoffs. The Grizzlies are they're like on two different timelines right now where the Bane trade set them up so well for the future. They already got a really like someone who's like looking like an absolute stud and Cedric Howard. They
The
still
name
have two
Paul
more
George
picks
has
from that.
crossed my mind a few times with Cedric Howard. I just want to say that he's really
No,
something.
yeah, and they've got more picks from that trade still come, including the Suns pick this year. They're gonna get the Suns first round pick this year, who I just saw beat the Spurs. I didn't watch. I'm gonna be interested to see like what happened there. But still, like that's gonna be a very valuable pick for the Grizzlies. And I don't know how much pressure is gonna be on them if we're in like December, January, they're 5 to 10 games below 500. They're usually much better than that. They're usually like way above 500 by then. Maybe they'll be a lot more comfortable just letting things fall as they may, potentially having two lottery picks. I just don't think the urgency is going to be there to move John Listic. They've really, truly given up on the situation and the possibility of getting like some better positive value. With 2 years left on his contract, I think at this point they would wait if that's like the best offer out there. I would have to say that, like, given what we know publicly, I think the Grizzlies have to say no to that.
Okay, I guess what I would say is I think when you're actually running that franchise and there's a human element and it's not as simple as like the cold, rational us from the outside saying this is what he's worth. I think like if we were running the Grizzlies and we could wave a magic wand and say Ja and his contract are no longer on this team, like an amnesty clause, we'd do it in a heartbeat because I think that's doing them more harm
Ooh,
than
I
good
don't
at
know
this.
about that.
I would. I think he's to them kind of negative. Like I think he's not a very good player, at least not close to the player he was when he signed that contract. He's causing all of these issues in the locker room. He's making it hard for you to run the system that you want to run. That offense that they installed last year ranked 6th at the end of the season. It was working for the most part. Obviously, there was that lull in the middle of the season that contributed to Taylor Jenkins getting fired. But like they were doing some really innovative things. Some really innovative things, by the way, that the Heat have adopted and are using very,
Yeah.
very well so far this season. You can't.
Yeah.
He's
Does Ja
having
would
him
even want to go
building.
there? Would
Well,
Ja
that's
even
the
want to
other.
go
You'd
there
have
then?
to solve that, but having
That
him
could
in the
solve itself.
building
Yeah.
is making it harder for you to conduct standard organizational business. It's making it harder for you to run the kind of plays that you want to run the kind of system you want to run, develop other players, have stable rotations because he's in and out of the lineup and you kind of don't know on a day-to-day basis, are we going to have him, are we not? To me, it's I just look at him and say he's a negative. If you're actually in Memphis, if you're actually running that team, there's a human cost to this where you see how beloved he is by those fans in Memphis. You understand that you're going to take a hit in selling tickets if he's not there. Fewer people are going to watch your games on TV. They're not looking at this coldly and rationally and saying, we can do X, Y, and Z with all this extra financial flexibility and it can get us a better draft pick. They're just thinking at one point in the not too distant past, we looked at Ja Morant as like our guy, our franchise guy, our version of Damian Lillard in Portland, or, like any version of that, any small market star. I understand why that's harder to do in practicality than it is in theory. I just look at this and I say, there are so many more ways that this can go wrong than this can go right. He could get hurt at any time. He could cause another problem at any time. He could continue to decline as he has for the past several years pretty linearly. If he magically bounced back to the form that he was 3 years ago, even then, I'm like, am I that enthused about where they are? Are they like this version of that roster with that version of Ja? I look at that and I'm like, you're like a 5 or 6 seed, then you'd have more work to do. I guess you'd have some promise just by virtue of having a player that good, but you'd have so much more work to do to actually build the roster that I'm not looking at this and saying they're 2022 Ja Morant away from championship contention. No, there are a lot of things away from championship contention, and I see a lot of ways in which they get further away from it than ways in which they get closer to it based solely on Ja. To me, I just look at this and I go like, I think he's a negative, and I think I'd rather just not have him on the team.
It's possible the Grizzlies feel that way, and that
Also possible, by the
like
way, that they've changed their mind in the last few days or months. Because remember, Zach Kleiman said around February last year, we're not trading Ja. Since then, changed coaches, playoff injury, this suspension. A lot of things have happened since the Grizzlies last like publicly declared on the subject.
no, I'm saying that the Grizzlies might feel that way internally, but I think there's going to be better offers first of all, like than this. I'm talking about like if this is the best thing they can get. I think that it might be better off taking the risk and playing things out a little more because yes, Ja could get injured. He is an injury prone guy. He could get in trouble again. He, for all we know, he might not get better at all on the court. But again, like with Ja right now, like there's gonna be a point, whether it's next year or the year after, where he's gonna want to play better because if his value is truly as low as we're thinking it is, then he probably doesn't have that many great options out there for him right now. Like, and we'll get to some of the teams where it's like, okay, would you rather go to this team or do you want to stay with the Grizzlies? Right now, I think he's going to be, it might not be right now, but he's going to get to a point where he's going to need to play hard and play better to improve his value because, as we discussed, like he's halfway through his contract. So I think at that point, if I'm the Grizzlies, like if that's the best offer, is just simply like just getting the contract off the books. I think they're better off holding on to him, letting things play out. He's going to have to play better and be a better leader. And the thing is, like in a macro sense, they're fine. Like their books are pretty good. I'm pulling them up right now. I don't know if they're showing up. Oh no, whoops. Where they don't have like any big cap issues right now in the macro sense. Like, Jaren's contract's about to go up next year, but for the most part, all these guys aren't making the minimum to like rookies level contracts. Clark and Pope's deal don't have that much time left. Like they're in a fine spot where if they're moving on from Ja, they're gonna be in all likelihood entering like a rebuild where they're going to scale back. They're going to get more picks, focus on the draft, which is what they always do best. They're going to have potentially 2 lottery picks in the upcoming draft. So if they're already going to move on fully to that timeline, they're in a very unique position where they could hold on to Ja even if they consider it quote unquote dead money. So I think that if the offers do get that low, I think they'd be okay waiting things out and seeing if Ja could raise his value, because at that point, like that same offer would probably still be there a year from now.
Yeah, my view is just I don't want to have somebody in my organization who's like a situation that's looming over everything that we're doing, where he's not in my long-term plans, but he's still here. So we still have to devote all of these shots, all of these touches to him. We still have to cater to him in those ways that, you have to cater to somebody with that cachet. I just frankly don't think it's worth it anymore. So you want to move on to some of my other fake trades that I think you're going to
So
reject. We can just talk about like
I'll
teams.
well I'll give you one. I don't, and I'm sure we'll have some overlap with these. So a team that a lot of people seem to really want Ja Morant on is the Timberwolves. I
I
think
do
that'd
have
be
that.
pretty interesting.
Want to hear the trade?
I've got one, and it's like
I
very cap
promise mine is
specific.
funnier.
Okay, no, mine's like actually like realistic, like because I'm actually trying to make it work where the Wolves have these trade restrictions with them being over the first apron, but they have to stay below the second. So like they have to do 1-for-1 in their aggregation. So keep in mind, the Wolves don't have any first round picks to trade. I think they have some swaps they could throw in. So like up to 3 first round pick swaps, I believe, but that's really not going to factor in. Basically, the trade would have to be, assuming they're not trading Rudy Gobert, which if I'm the Grizzlies, I don't think I want to bring him in. It would be Naz Reid, Dante DiVincenzo, Rob Dillingham. Those 3 players combined make just over Ja Morant's 39 point whatever million dollar salary. The Grizzlies, they bring in Dillingham. That's the big, I think that's like the big draw where if they believe in him, okay, that's the main value there. You bring in Naz Reid, you bring in Dante DiVincenzo, who could potentially be flipped later for more value. I think they both have positive value, so that could be expanded to a bigger deal. But just from the Wolves end, that's basically the offer. I I'm basically going when I do my offers from like what I think is like the weaker offers to the quote unquote strongest. And I think this just kind of goes down to how much would the Grizzlies value Rob Dillingham. Uh, I I wouldn't be shocked if the Wolves are able to pull this off if this is the direction they want to go. I don't think though this would be the direction they want to go though. I don't see them wanting to do a 3-for-1 to bring in Ja. But that's just as I do the math. That's kind of that's my conclusion of what it would look like.
Yeah, Minnesota is interesting to me for a few reasons. Number one, Tim Connolly is like ballsy enough to do this. He does the big crazy trade all of the time. There are a lot of GMs who would be too scared. I don't think he would be. They obviously need a long-term point guard. They hope that it can be Dillingham or Shannon, or they can play DiVincenzo with Ant. Like it's fluid. They have a couple of internal options. Maybe they'll just play it out. I think if I were them, I probably would try to play it out. And if anything, I would try to get a little bit younger and trade one of the older guys and like to say it's not going to be this year, it might not be next year, but end of the decade we're going to be a lot better equipped to like really contend then. The trade I came up with is a little bit different. The Timberwolves would get Ja Morant and John Conchar. The Boston Celtics would get Rudy Gobert, and the Memphis Grizzlies would get Anthony Simons, Sam Hauser, Terrence Shannon, and Mike Conley. Cue the coming home montage. Am I off base? Am I crazy? Is this not a fun idea?
Oh, it's more fun than mine, that's for
I
sure.
told you.
I Yeah, if the Grizzlies don't really, if the objective for Memphis is just getting off Ja's contract, then sure. Uh, if Wait, so are they just have Naz Reid the starting center? I kind of
Yeah,
got
the
lost.
idea would be since you're starting Ja at point guard, and he's also going to be off the ball a lot because Anthony Edwards is there, you just start Naz Reid at center and you say, our goal is to be like the number three offense, and then we'll survive on defense because we have Ant, because we have McDaniels, because we have a really good coaching staff. We're not going to have great rim protection. We know that, but we're going to be so good on offense that we think we can get by. And then if we have to trade Julius Randle for more defense, we can do that knowing that we have enough playmaking in house.
I mean, I could see the Wolves doing that if they feel Baron J is going to be ready soon.
I
I don't
think
even
Baron J is going to be ready soon. And it's like
has
when
he
I say
has
soon,
he
I mean like end of this year.
I don't think he hasn't even been playing at all, has he?
I'm a believer. I think like not
Yeah.
remember how Shannon was playing in the Western Finals last year for like 10 minutes and kind of raised some eyebrows like, oh, he's holding his own. Like he's okay. I think that's where we can be with Baron J, where we're gonna get to the playoffs and like if they needed 10 minutes out of him, I think they could get it.
I guess the team, like, I'm not sure if I don't see Gobert as the guy the Celtics go for though. Like after having had Porzingis, I think they're gonna want to either like do kind of what they did before, where they had Rob Williams and like a couple other centers making like mid-level-ish money, and just have the variety. Or if they're going to commit big on a center, it's probably going to be another stretch big again, which is going to be harder. It's going to be easier said than done. I don't see them wanting to pay Gobert that. But I like the creativity, even though it's not really about the Celtics.
Yeah, I mean, I just everyone has said some version of oh, Boston is looking for their next Al Horford, their next Porzingis. Like those guys don't exist. There aren't that many of them. I think Boston eventually is going to have a come to Jesus moment where they realize that there isn't another Horford out there, there isn't another Porzingis, unless they're willing to like really, really pay for that guy. They're probably going to have somebody who's a little bit more normal at center, which I think goes back to what you were saying that it's probably going to be at a lower price point where like I think going into next year they'll probably have two guys who are in that like 15-20 million dollar range at center and then maybe a third guy who's a younger prospect that they have relatively cheap, a draft pick, somebody they signed, whatever. So I think that's probably what they do. That being said, if Boston came into next year with Derek White, Tatum, Brown, and Rudy Gobert, pretty interesting in that terrible, terrible East. So, all right,
I think Missoula. I don't think Missoula would want to play Gobert at all.
let me move
Yeah.
up to another of my more controversial ones. This is mostly a joke. I don't think this is actually going to happen. We can get into some more realistic ones, but this is just funny to me. A lot of people throwing out Dallas because the Mavericks don't have any guards. There's a way to do this without really affecting the 2025-26 team because the Mavericks have a lot of salary that's kind of just sitting out there and Kyrie Irving, who may or may not play this year. So let me throw this out there to you. Ja Morant to Dallas, Kyrie Irving to Houston to reunite with Kevin Durant, and Fred
Okay.
VanVleet, Dorian Finney-Smith, Caleb Martin, and a protected pick in 2028 from Houston going to Memphis. Am I onto something here?
I like this one. That's interesting.
It's fun. It'll never
Uh,
happen because, like, when with Dallas, we're not talking about actual basketball considerations. We're talking about the wonderful mind of Nico Harrison and whatever's going on in there. He would never trade Kyrie Irving for anything, even though Kyrie might not play this year. If you were Dallas, you
yeah.
get Ja, who's significantly younger than Kyrie. Obviously, he's not the same easy stylistic fit with that giant team that they have, but you could maybe have him next to Cooper Flag for the next 5-6 years and feel pretty good about that. Houston could just tell Kyrie, come back March 15th. We're not even going to talk to you until then. We don't need you in the regular season. We need you to play 10 games in the regular season to get in shape, and then we're going to go dominate in the playoffs with you and KD getting your redemption tour with all of our defense and our size and our rebounding. I got pretty excited about that one. It'll never happen, but boy, is it fun.
I think if you're Dallas, you could justify it given everything that's happening. You got a new, potentially a new front office in there, and you're trading all the other vets. You bring in someone who fits Cooper's timeline a little bit more. I don't know enough to know if that's going to be a great fit long term, but again, like if you can mainly turn Kyrie Irving, who by all accounts, like probably I would bet on being better than Ja Morant going forward, but that's the primary value they're giving up to get Ja Morant. That's kind of like Portland going. I mean, yeah, Portland. I guess it's like the inverse Portland, where they traded Anthony Simons for Drew Holiday. Got much older, but way better. For Dallas, it's like, okay, you might be getting a little worse going from Irving, who's much more experienced, a lot more skilled, but you're really not going anywhere with him and Anthony Davis going forward. So I'd be for it if they can make that happen. The more I talk to you about this, the more I feel like, okay, maybe Memphis might be willing to trade Ja for a little less value than I'd be hoping for, in which case a team like Dallas could surprisingly get him. I don't know. In that case, let me ask you, do you have a Suns trade? Because
I
that
do have a
was one
Suns
where
trade.
like, you do?
Yes, I do.
Because
This is
yeah, that
where
was one where I'll just say quickly, I didn't even like bother because they don't even have like even like a valuable pick swap to offer. Like
2032 is pretty valuable. I'd
like
want the 2032 Sun swap.
you're like, okay, let me hear your offer because it's just player
Okay.
based.
So the initial thought that I had was Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks is kind of the player value with the idea that Jalen getting him into that Memphis program that's so good at developing players, given his just raw athletic ability, I'd be pretty interested in that. And you have him on like it's a 3-year contract. It's big. It's not the max. I think it's manageable. I think it's worth the exploration. Problem is, I don't think the Grizzlies would want a Dylan Brooks reunion, just given the way things ended there. So I had to go out and I had to find a team that would trade. I said a protected first round pick for Dylan Brooks. And you go through the contenders, you go through, oh, could the Lakers do it? I don't think he's worth enough. Oh, or the Warriors do it. Well, I don't think the Warriors, just personality wise, that would make sense. And I happened upon a team that I didn't expect. A team that I think could really use another perimeter defender who I think he would be a nice little locker room voice for them, given how young they are. What about the Chicago Bulls, who do not seem to mind giving away picks in that, like, late lottery range? I don't know. Maybe you give away your 2026 first round pick, protected for the lottery. If you're the Bulls for Dylan Brooks, you say, we're going to go try to be a top 6 team this year. He'll really help our defense. He'll help our culture. So we'll give Memphis our pick, protected 2026. And the Grizzlies will also get Jalen Green and the expiring contract to Zach Collins. Suns get Ja Morant, John Conchar for money. And now, if you're the Suns, would I necessarily recommend the Ja and Devin Booker pairing? No, I just that's two players that contractually I'm not super interested in. But if you look at what went wrong with last year's Suns, one of the things that killed them was redundancy, where Durant and Booker and Beal kind of all take the same shots, where I think they were 13th in offense, but they were 29th in points in the paint. They just didn't get to the rim at all. If you give Devin Booker a point guard who can get to the basket, that suddenly makes a little bit more sense. Do you have defensive issues? Yes. Are you still really, really reliant on either Mark Williams hitting or Maluwatch growing into something? Yeah. But it's easier to talk yourself into that than like this thing they're doing now where it's like Devin Booker and like a bunch of shooting guards and a bunch of centers. I don't know. It doesn't really fit. So that was kind of interesting to me. I don't know that I'd do it if I were the Suns, but it was kind of the only ambitious Matt Ishbia move I could think of.
I think it's a no brainer if you're the Suns. Just like with Dallas, the floor is just so low right now, given all the dysfunction. all the mismanagement. Where if you can get Ja Morant just for mainly Jalen Green and like another salary filler. Yes, Dylan Brooks isn't just a salary filler. He does have, I think he does have positive value. I do want to point out that I do think that trade you just said of where like Chicago trading a first round pick does make some sense because teams, so many teams have gone all in on trading multiple future first round picks, but like specifically the odd numbered years, so many teams are out of like they had traded their 2025 first round picks and like their 2027 first round picks that like very few teams can actually trade a 2026 first round pick. And the Bulls are one of them. But, and I'm not saying this mainly because they're off to a great start. I think that's going to come down a little bit, but they're probably going to get the Blazers first round pick that you like. It's easy to forget the Blazers owe them a first round pick from the Larry Markkinen sign and trade, where the Blazers traded them a first round pick, but they got Larry Nance from the Cavs in that deal. Larry went to the Cavs, and that was a first round pick, like with all the protections. I felt like that might just never convey. And with the way Blazers are playing, yeah, the Bulls could probably afford to trade one of them at the deadline, at least if they're looking good. Maybe they could aim a little higher for Dylan Brooks. That'll be a more interesting discussion. Like if the Bulls are like firmly in the top 6 and they want to do something, where is it that they'd want to upgrade? Because that's a really hard question to answer, I think. But overall, I think that actually that makes a lot of sense. For all the teams, for the Suns, I think that's a no-brainer. For the Bulls, I think that makes sense. I mean, with the Grizzlies, what are they? So they're getting a first-round pick from the Bulls, and then they're taking on Jalen Green,
and then the expiring Collins contract. You're basically just taking a shot at Jalen Green and saying, we are the best player development team in the NBA. If there's a team that can make this work, it would probably be us.
You know, I don't know. I still think that this might somehow be worse than than the Heat one, where we just like went onto like a 20-minute debate over.
You're just getting out of the contract. Jalen Green
exactly.
Contract. Yeah, he might be
exactly
good. You don't know.
Jalen Green he has got the same length as Ja Morant contract, just makes like a little bit less.
Yep.
But
he's also much younger and generally healthier. So if you do have any belief in him, you could maybe like get him with the idea that like, oh, if he's better than he's been in the past, if we can develop him, then we could like be pretty good with him again relatively quickly. Let's move on to another. Let me see how many more we have here. This is an interesting one, but it's one I wouldn't do. I just want to put it out so we can say that we touched on the topic. We know that what the Bucks are doing right now is basically trying to bide time until John Horst can do his next, like, pull a rabbit out of the hat to get Giannis to sign an extension. Do you consider that if you're the Bucks? If the cost is like Kyle Kuzma, Bobby Portis, Kevin Porter Jr., and like swap rights on their 26th first round pick, something like that. And the answer that I came to was no, I'm not doing that if I'm the Bucks. They've done so well with these really cheap, shoot first guards in the backcourt with Giannis running the point, like, really running the offense. I would be saving my ammunition for the offseason. I think they're fine. I just wanted to bring them up and see if you had any thoughts there.
That's something where it'd be possible had they not stretched Damian Lillard, where if they can potentially turn that contract into Ja and like very minor draft equity. I mean, it'd probably take a lot more draft equity. Like that's still like despite whatever negative value might be associated with Ja, that Damian Lillard with the torn Achilles making 35% of the max, you do not want. I think you'd rather have Ja making 25% of that max healthy. I think that's a pretty easy decision. So it's tough because it's kind of a math problem with the Bucks. Like I'm looking at their cap sheet, like because of Dame's money, they're kind of limited, like not so much about them making a move, but like they kind of have one big move that they could make between combining Kuzma, Portis, uh, Porter at the trade deadline. Like you could trade for a max guy, even theoretically could go that high. But then it's basically like one move that you have to make. So the question is, is that where you want to do it at guard, where they took they took a lot of shots at guards between Ryan Rollins, who, okay, that's like the big
Ryan
winner.
Rollins
He might,
rules.
yeah,
He's the starter. Don't mess with that.
he's definitely worth double than whatever he's currently making. And it seems like they've got decent depth whenever Kevin Porter comes back with Cole Anthony. And then Giannis, he needs the ball so much. Like he's also like very much the point guard as well. So I don't think that's where they want to allocate that salary slot to. I think they definitely need some wing help and a little more shooting at the perimeter as well.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement here. Ironically, that would be another potentially interesting Dylan Brooks team. But I think
Mm,
they'll wait for the off season, and they'll probably be in touch with Giannis and say, "Are there guys you'd like us to pursue?" Having seen like what this style of team can look like, and then maybe work from there. So I didn't think the Bucks were a really rational team. I just wanted to throw them out there just because we've talked a lot about the basic idea
yeah.
of John Horst doing another John Horst thing.
Okay. So,
Raptors, next one I want to bring up.
whoa, wait. Hold on. I have a Raptors one too, but I do want to build up to them. It's my turn.
Huh?
Uh, I want to do the Clippers.
Not on my
Where
list.
I think they have as much a shot as any of these teams that we mentioned so far. Again, minimal downside for them. They're because of their age. Like really, they have no upside on this roster going forward. Like you could, like John Collins might have like you can say like the most upside just given he's like one of the youngest players on the team, and that's I'm not saying he's going to like evolve into something more than he is. I'm just saying like that's how old this team is. Uh, but they do have 2 first round picks to trade far out in the future. Now the Clippers, they're gonna have a lot of cap space flexibility over these next 2 years, but Ja Morant's not gonna be a free agent by then. So they would have to make a trade for him. So they're gonna have to. I think they have to trade one of those picks just because it's just pure salary filler. So making the money work's not really an issue. Let's see who they've got. Oh yeah. So my specific offer, I believe, was so yeah. They're right at the first apron. So one unprotected first, probably the earliest one they could trade. So I believe that's 2030 with Collins and Bogdanovich. So just pure salary filler where it's like pretty much dollar for dollar. The Grizzlies could probably send a little something back. What do you think about that?
I would rather wait and try to sign Trey Young as an unrestricted free agent than pay a first round pick to get Ja, who I'd want to have on my team less than potentially signing Trey outright. If they were gonna do the like pay max money for a small guard who's not a good defender, that's what I would do. I don't know. And I also just say like, does Ja make them better this year? I don't know. Like I think they're kind of happy with what they have as far as like they're
Uh,
not an inner circle championship contender this year, but they're pretty good. And I think, I think they'd rather kind of just stick with what they have and deal with the future when it comes.
I would argue I think he does make him better because there's no one on the Clippers that could do what he does. Like theoretically, like Ja hasn't been getting to the paint, but to have someone who could theoretically do that, I think that would like they desperately need a jolt of athleticism. I know that the Clippers have been like they've been all right so far. I worry that the age could hit them as we get later into the year and closer to the playoffs. Like you can't really anticipate it, but with some of these teams, like you never know when it's gonna hit. Um, so yeah, like if you're talking about the value proposition, if you can get Trey without giving up any value, any assets, okay, I get that, but I don't know. I think they could actually really use the type of player Ja's supposed to be.
I also just wonder, yes, he does bring things to the table that they don't have anyone to do those things. But at the same time, if you put him on the floor, you're taking minutes away from guys who do other things that he doesn't do. And we saw this when they got rid of Paul George. The idea was basically like, yeah, we're losing the star level shot making and creation, but we're inserting so much more defense. We're getting a little bit more guard play, a little bit more creation in that perspective. And it worked out better for them. I kind of just don't think they want to integrate another $40 million player who's kind of one dimensional when all of these, like the role players that they've accumulated, might also be one dimensional, but you have so many of them and they do so many different things that just opens up a lot more lineup flexibility for them. So the Clippers don't really interest me. Let's do the Raptors. They're tough because I guess you're going to end up with Ja and Scotty, your two best players, your two most expensive players, both on the perimeter, don't really make threes. Jakob Poeltl is your center, not really a three-point shooter either. So you kind of have to get perfect shooting elsewhere, and they don't really have that. But I threw out Emmanuel Quickly in a lottery protected pick. I didn't know how I felt about that because the Quickly contract does not look great in its own right. So I can't say I'm excited about it, but the Raptors are one of those teams that's in the they should take a meaningful risk boat because I don't know what they're doing. They're paying the tax. And this trade, by the way, takes them like right up to the precipice of the first apron, which is just kind of amazing given where they are. But the Raptors were a team where like they should sniff around this because I don't know what else they're doing, but I won't pretend I'm excited about it.
First of all, now that we're on Toronto, I just want to bring up that right now the Pelicans are 0-6. They are getting flamed by everybody covering them, following them about the way they're playing and the decisions they made leading up to the season where they traded not one, but two potential valuable lottery picks in the upcoming 2026 draft. I just want to say, like, Toronto, they're kind of like Homer Simpson in the bushes right now, just like hiding away. They listen, like, obviously, the Pacers were really good at the time they made that trade. That pick was not looking valuable. But the Brandon, like them trading for Brandon Ingram and extending him before he even played a game for them, very puzzling decision at the time. And I mean, I think even to this, I haven't been paying too much attention to like how Raptors players are doing individually. I think I feel pretty confident that the Raptors probably still shouldn't have done that trade. Like, and that's before even getting into the pick. Like, I'm not really thinking much about that pick. I'm mainly talking about the flexibility. I'd rather have some more, like, save that move for another type of guy later.
I'm so glad that you're bringing this up because I just want to ask this one.
I'm just saying the Raptors, like, I got to call them out. They still also gave up a very valuable pick they could probably be using this next summer.
The pick is whatever. Like, I'd rather they have it, but if you believe in the player, fine. If they
Yeah.
had let that contract expire and let him go into free agency when nobody has any money, what was the best offer he was getting? Like, if I were the Raptors, if 3 for 120 is what's on the table, let him go into free agency, see nothing, and then come back and be like, so 3 for 80 sounds pretty good, doesn't it, Brandon? Because what else is out there? Like, are you taking the
Yeah.
mid level? You're not taking the mid level. Like, that's just an example of, we hear this all the time. Some teams need to be more comfortable being uncomfortable. And the Raptors are the opposite of that, where they extend everybody at the drop of a hat. Jakob Poeltl is the best example of this. They extended him through 2030. Why? What was their impetus for that? Like, who was he putting pressure on you saying like, "Hey, you don't extend me. I might ask for a trade." Like, okay, call your bluff. Do it. That's the thing the Raptors
Yeah.
just refuse to do. They refuse to like be at all comfortable telling their players like, "No, we're negotiating. I'm not just giving you whatever you want." Every player that everyone in their starting lineup, I guess Barrett signed his contract with the Knicks, but the other four guys making starter money, it was kind of just like, yeah, we're going to pay you at the absolute top of the market at the earliest possible moment when that just made no sense whatsoever. So I'm glad you brought up the Raptors. I had been waiting for an excuse to get that off my chest. We've lost
Yeah.
track of what we were supposed to be
Oh,
talking
no,
about.
no, no. No, so I'm going to
Now
comment
speak
on your,
about job.
no, I'm going to comment on your offer. First of all, I think we could agree that the Raptors are not well equipped to bring in Ja. and two, they would probably still do it anyways. If the value was right.
I mean, yeah, it's the
Yeah,
sort of thing where like Ja Morant is a big enough name that ownership might say like, "Hey, if we made an offer, like, are we trying to get him? What's up with that?"
yeah.
Like, I
So
wouldn't do it. I don't think it really makes sense, but I could see them trying.
so my offer is essentially the OG Anunoby return plus one unprotected or maybe lightly protected first round pick. So they're sending out Quickly and Barrett. Again, pretty like cap conscious because they do have their luxury tax apron issues. So it's going to have to be pretty dollar for dollar. And they bring back Ja and KCP, which actually I think would help the Raptors a lot if in their configuration around Ja. Because anyways, RJ was it already seems like he's not a he's probably kind of like on the way out. Where there was reporting after the Ingram trade that uh, the Raptors tried to include RJ Barrett in it, and the Pelicans said no. So if you can if you're going to bring in a non-shooter like Ja, and then you're going to replace quickly shooting, who again, he's not a shooter, but at the same time, neither is like KCP, but they could, at the same time, they could still hit them and space the floor effectively. Uh, I, I mean, that's the trade. Nothing exciting. But I
Yeah, I
think
think the unprotected pick is the most valuable asset in that trade.
yeah,
That's
just
just
one unprotected pick, like the most upcoming one, I guess the Raptors have. Like
but
if
like
this year's
this
pick,
year's pick is going to be good. I would not do that. No,
or maybe
I think
or you know what? I mean, the Grizzlies already have two lottery picks in this year's draft. Could be next year's.
yeah, I get, but either way, wait, are you saying the Raptors get the pick?
No, the Grizzlies would get a pick from the Raptors. I'm
Yeah. Oh,
saying
okay.
like,
Oh, so you're saying
okay,
they would
maybe
ask
they
for Toronto's next year? Gotcha.
because if you're Toronto, it's so it's so tricky now. Like it used to be where if you trade first round picks, you want to trade like something a little more recent because you know that the team you're trading with, they're trying to get your picks out in the future because they anticipate that your window's now and they have a better chance of getting a more valuable pick in the future once your window's over. Now, just never know. Like, who would have thought that the Pacers were going to have this injury bug? Like, it's almost more risky to trade like your upcoming first. Like, imagine if the Mavs traded their 2025 first round pick right after going to the finals in 2024. Like, they could have justified doing that. And oh my God, that could have been, we'd be in a completely different timeline now
I
had they
wonder
done
if they
that.
still would have made the Luca trade in that world. I don't know. That's we're going down some rabbit holes here
Yeah.
that we probably shouldn't. I have one more
Yeah.
team that I want to get to. As we talked about this, I kind of just realized how unexcited I was for the Raptors, not just in the Ja sweepstakes, but just like in general. It's a bummer over there.
Yep.
Last team I want to talk about. I just feel like this is an appropriate team
All
to
right. I
continue.
think we're probably on the same team. The
Is it
Kings.
Sacramento?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course it is. I mean, they had their most success with a downhill attacking point guard in De'Aaron Fox. Ja is not the shooter that Fox is, and Fox, very good mid range shooter, not so much 3-point shooter. Ja isn't where Fox is at either level, frankly. But the Kings aren't really rational actors. They have been saying all offseason, oh, we need a point guard. We need a point guard. Shockingly, Dennis Schroeder and Russell Westbrook have not fixed those issues for them. I don't really know what their long term direction is. And I think Ja is cheap enough that if you went out and you got him, you could still have enough in reserve that you could go trade for Kaminga later if that's something the Warriors want to do, which right now I don't think they do because Kaminga's been playing well for them. So you might just have missed out on Kaminga, period. So I think this is something Sacramento would do is like, see, no, we have our two stars again. It's going to be just like 2023. We're going to light the beam all over again. It's going to be great. So my offer was DeMar DeRozan, Malik Monk, and Devin Carter for Morant and Conchar. DeMar is guaranteed for 10 million next year. So like, you're not getting out of him scot free, but you can get out of the bulk of that contract next year. I think Monk for 19 million a year. I don't know why that's seen as a negative asset. He's fine. He's like a good 6-man low end starter. He's become a much better playmaker than he was in the past. He's not just a like 3-point gunner bench scorer guy. Like no, he's a more versatile offensive player than that. And if you have a good defensive infrastructure, I think he's good to have. And just
It's
in
mostly like
general,
an oversaturation of guards in the
yeah,
league. Like teams just don't need guards.
right.
That's killing his value.
And then Devin Carter, I am just in favor of acquiring recent lottery picked guards from the Kings when you consider that the last one they traded turned out pretty well, Tyrese Halliburton.
More
I
like the
don't
last three:
who
Davion
else are we not
Mitchell,
thinking of?
Luka Doncic,
Oh,
De'Aaron
well,
Fox.
they didn't have Luca. No, well, they
I'm
traded
saying like
Davion
any guard
Mitchell
they
that turned out
trade.
well. But yeah, my point is like I think the Kings are a team that's like desperate enough that they might be willing to look past his flaws and say, well, we've got plenty of shooting. We have a big who can shoot. He's gonna love to screen. Ja can run as many pick and rolls as he wants here. He'll run a bunch of dribble handoff. He'll have the ball all the time. And also, like, I actually kind of think Russell Westbrook might be a useful teammate for Ja, just as like a cautionary tale of like, buddy, you don't figure this stuff out, you might wind up making the minimum, jumping from team to team every year. You don't want that. So yeah, kind of a cautionary tale teammate to have around. So yeah, again, I'm not excited about it. I'm not looking at the Kings going like, wow, they get Ja Morant, they're really headed somewhere. They're just one of these teams where I think the risk reward profile makes enough sense.
So when I'm talking about like the teams that would make that type of desperation play, like I was mentioning, it would have been Chicago. I don't think that's the case. It's definitely the Kings at this point. I think they've only won once or twice so far. I think it's going to get pretty ugly for them. They're not even like doing well offensively. Just too many guys that need the ball for this thing to work. Yeah, I think they're 21st on offense right now. Um, 19th or a little better. Uh, I I think they can make it happen. And as to my other point, where even though we went through this whole exercise and I kind of warmed up more to the idea of the Grizzlies maybe being open to these trades where they're just getting off Ja, I'm still feeling like they've got time on their side. They got these nice lottery picks coming. They're already kind of like on a rebuild, so they can wait it out. This is the type of team that if they make a strong offer, even like one unprotected first or like extremely lightly protected first from the Kings, I think you gotta like that's the type of offer where if I'm the Grizzlies, I wouldn't wait. I think I would just take it because the
Okay, side
Kings.
note:
Keep in mind,
if you get an unprotected offer from the Kings, I don't care who you're trading, you should take. Like
yes.
they've literally been in the lottery in 18 of the past 19 seasons. Is it 17 of 18, something like that? Like history says that's a lottery pick.
Let's say and I'm glad you brought up Kaminga because I also factored that in because if the Kings are gonna make a trade for a guy like Ja, I think getting Kaminga to round things out again, like what does that mean? Like they're still probably fighting for a play-in spot, but either way, for what they're probably for what their vision is of what they're trying to go for, getting both those players kind of makes sense. My offer, where'd it go? Okay, well, basically it's DeMar and Schroeder. So that's the salaries. You're doing like an exact match, and you got to trade two first. I figured they're gonna trade the like one of their own picks. So I don't know what year that will be. Probably something like not too soon, maybe like in a year or two, and maybe they just top four protect it, and then they only need to trade an additional first, which I would say is going to be that Wolves pick that they have. Then they could go ahead and do Monk and probably like Devin Carter and another very lightly protected first round pick, bring in Kaminga, and it all pretty much works. You've got this pretty neat starting five. I didn't take out Devin Carter, but he would be going out in the deal. You keep Keon Ellis, so there's your top six. Just find out, try to get a different backup big. Seems like something that they would like, like not strongly consider, but definitely have a big conversation about if they could pull both these off. What do you think?
I think for the love of God, Kings, don't give away all those unprotected picks. Like, just be realistic with where you are. If you want to try to improve, fine. If you want to take on a bad contract, fine. You're talking about giving away like two or three good picks. No, absolutely not. Like, your history tells me those picks are going to be very valuable.
Yeah.
Even the Minnesota pick, which isn't yours, I'd want to hold on to that, see how this plays out for Minnesota. I'm not super confident that Anthony Edwards is going to be on that team in 2031. I'm not saying I think he's going to move. I'm saying I don't want to make that bet right now. So no, absolutely not. If I'm the Kings, I will take Ja Morant if all it means is taking on the contract. You're talking about giving up picks? No chance.
No, I'm coming from the Grizzlies perspective where I'm
Look,
gonna want
if
to
the
get like
Grizzlies get
some.
offered this, run it into the league
Yeah.
office. Don't call. Go in person to make sure that they don't like miss the call or something. Like, take
Yeah.
that in a heartbeat.
No, no. If you can get one unprotected Kings pick to do this, I think that's the type of trade. Yeah, like just do it
Just
now.
do it.
So, but I think we're pretty much in agreement that for the most part, all these teams that we went over, even we feel like they probably most of the teams shouldn't go for Ja. Is there which of these teams after going through this do you think should take the risk the most for him?
Miami. I think it's easy. Miami is the team in the next few years because they don't really have the assets unless they want to put Ware on the table, which I wouldn't because I think Ware is like really, really interesting longer term. I think Miami's
Okay.
going to make a play for one of these like high risk, high reward guys. Zion is somebody that we've talked about before. Ja makes sense in that slot. Maybe it's somebody in a bad contract. I don't know who, but like Miami needs that tier one superstar, and they don't have the assets to get the like traditional one. So they're going to have to take a risk at some point. And they have the expiring contracts to do this. They have the infrastructure to make this work. They have a great coaching staff. They have everything Ja would theoretically need to succeed. If the older version of him is still in there, Miami's the team to get it out.
No, I agree. You convinced me. If you can get him mainly for Rozier, and then they're gonna have a math problem as far as paying everybody. They could figure that out later. But even if like, and again, like I agree. Like they're gonna have to keep Hero. So now you're dealing with a very vulnerable backcourt if you're starting him and Hero. Uh, but maybe you have enough offense where, like, for the most part, the Heat are all trying to start Bam with Khalil Ware for the most part. So maybe, they could. I think they would make it work. And it just kind of comes down to can they get Ja's head back in? Can they get him back on track from a couple of years ago? And if not, then is there some variation of that player that they could bring in who could make a positive impact? No, I'm with you. They're 1A for me. And I guess like 1B would be the Clippers for me. Uh, I think it'd be a pretty low cost if they can get him, considering they really have no players of like with strong trade value to offer. If they can, and then like considering that they might be out some first round picks in the near future, uh, might be worth to dip into some of that and bring in a guy to help propel you just in case things get bad with the penalties, which, now we're about 2 months from all those revelations. I kind of get the feeling they're going to be all right. No big serious suspension, but just in case, I, I think it might be worth the risk. And again, considering how old they are, I think he'd make them not like significantly better, but like meaningfully better, provided since they don't have really anybody who plays like him.
Yeah, I'm kind of like as I talk about this, I'm just like maybe I'm just out on him as a player. I just think the trend line for like not just the individual stats, but like the ways in which his shots are coming, the ways in which he's scoring, the defense is a mess. I kind of just believe like it'd be one thing if you could have Ja Morant at 20 or 25 million, and if you had to bring him off the bench, you could. But when you think about just like how much you have to organizationally invest in somebody of that stature, not just the money, but like you have to give him a certain number of shots. You have to start him. You have to cater to him off the court in ways that you do for all stars. I just don't want to do that. I'm just coming to that conclusion. I think a team like Miami could justify it because they have such a good track record of making situations like this work. But for a normal team, I'm kind of in like prove me wrong mode. Like if the old jaw is in there and we see him again, like cool. I loved watching that guy. I hope he figures it out. I don't believe in my heart of hearts that he's going to do it.
Let's fast forward to around first week of February. I don't know if this is the exact like I don't know how many games will be within games have been played, but let's say they're like 15 and 25. Do you think Ja Morant gets traded this year?
I don't think he's going to get traded this year, period. I just think inertia is a really powerful force. And I think teams really, like more often than not in these situations, they wait too long to do a trade like this than make the trade too early. I know Luca threw us off because that was way, way, way too early. But I think more often than not, it's just hard to like wrap the owner's mind around like this guy who you see his jersey around the city everywhere for 5, 6, 7 years. He sells your tickets. He's the guy who you're putting on billboards, all that. Like it's really hard to get an entire organization behind the idea that like we just got to get rid of this guy, not even for peak value, just like to have him off of the team. In real life, that's harder to do than it is on a podcast like this. So I think he will be on the team past the deadline.
Yeah.
If I were running
No.
the Grizzlies, he would not be.
No, I agree. It's going to take time. I don't think he's going to get traded. Now, let's say they're in that same position. Like it feels pretty obvious they're going to be out of the playoffs. Jaren Jackson Jr., on the other hand,
No, I don't think he's going anywhere, period. Like, even if they do trade Ja, I don't think they're doing a full teardown. I don't think they want to do that in that market. I think they would look at it and say, we have Jaren, we have Cedric Howard coming up. We have a lot of young talent. We're deep. We're going to like be bad the rest of this year, collect our 2 lottery picks, and then try to be decent again in the somewhat near future. We're not going to fast forward. We're not going to make dumb, short-sighted, short-term trades, but we're not going to like try to do a prolonged tank. I don't think there's an appetite for that there.
I just bring Jaren up because I think despite everything going on, I think he's got a lot more trade value right now than Ja. Mainly because, kind of like Bane, you could plug in Jaren onto so many teams. I guess the biggest thing, number one, is would the Grizzlies get the Bane type return? And two, does Jaren's new contract, which is going to put him like at right below the max, could that potentially prevent those type of hauls from coming? I want to say probably not. I still think that they could get that type of return from him because there's because there's going to be a bigger market for Jaren, but two, like Jaren was going to probably get this type of contract anyways. If he didn't extend, renegotiate, he would have made it to free agency. Someone would have thrown a max at him. So I just say, basically, I'm just trying to say that if the Grizzlies do eventually move on to a rebuild, a full-on rebuild, I think Jaren's going to get moved first. Might be kind of, that might be kind of wild to say after we just did an hour and a half talking about Ja and how like it feels like that era is done in Memphis, but I could see Jaren getting moved a lot faster if and when they get to the decision to do a full teardown.
If they were going to trade Jaren, they would have done it before the contract, I think. And we saw the same thing with Lauri Markkanen. It just gets so much harder at the $50 million cap figure than it was at the $20 million cap figure. Plus, again, if you are going to move Ja, you kind of need somebody to be the face of the organization, the person that you put on the billboard that you have doing interviews where you say like, look, we're not totally tearing down. There's a reason for you to come to the games. He's somebody that the fans have connected to. He's been there for his whole career. Again, I don't think there's any organizational taste for trading Jaren Jackson. If they were going to do it, they would have done it over the summer. I just don't think it's going to happen now. I think if they do trade Ja, the idea is going to be Jaren was the reliable star all along. He's the guy that you should love. He's the guy who should retire in this uniform. Like, that's the way they're going to frame it, I think.
Sam, you got anything you want to plug?
Read CBSSports.com. I wrote about the Ja situation today. I am publishing some Ja landing spots, which we obviously covered in here for tomorrow. So yeah, just as always, read CBS Sports. That's where all my stuff goes.
Thanks for joining. As always, Sam, been awesome having you as the co-host. Subscribe to Third Apron, everybody. The podcast, wherever you get podcasts, the Substack. Gonna have something on the Pelicans tomorrow. Follow us on Twitter. You can see our handles at our names. And we may be back this week. Maybe we'll be back in a week from now. Stay tuned. Thank you for joining.